Moving on very quickly then, just into the last section of the webinar today, is to look at how industrial symbiosis could contribute to a green recovery in Northern Ireland. Green recovery is certainly very, very topical. It's been on the news this morning. Even Boris Johnson was talking about it today. And it's something that really I would like to see in Northern Ireland being focused just as much on the business community as on society as a whole. I think it's great if we can look at alternative modes of transport for the general public to improve our public transport infrastructure and the availability of cycle paths and bicycles in general. But in addition, I really do think that there's an awful lot that the business community can do in this particular area and do really, really well, because we've demonstrated it over the last 13 years, not just through industrial symbiosis, but through the whole package of sustainable support that Invest NI has been offering. So the first step really is to help to improve our regional infrastructure. And I want to do that by talking about what's called the waste hierarchy. Um, Really, this is part of our legislative agreement. And within this, you've got 5 steps. The one at the bottom is disposal of waste. And really, there's no conservation of resources there, and it's also extremely expensive to do. So it's really not, shouldn't be an option for a business. They shouldn't be considering disposing of any waste. They should be looking for other opportunities and moving up through these from 4, 3, 2, and 1. Historically, over the last 10 years, businesses seem to have been fairly content with saying and actually managing to recycle wastes and reprocess materials. But I would actually like to advocate that we should be aiming for number one, and that we should actually be seeking to avoid wasting resources at all. That we should be seeking to produce new products that involve recycled material. One such company that's done that here in Northern Ireland is Camden, and where they actually set up a recycling plant in Northern Ireland based on some facts and figures that we were able to produce for them, and able to introduce them to all the people that were actually generating waste PVC, both post construction and post consumer waste. And they're actually taking that and they're making, I think it's a 75 to 80% recycled product out of that on the back of it, which is really, really good. So, you know, there are opportunities there to avoid waste. So even their own waste that's being generated within the company can actually be taken back and recycled into new product again. And they're not the only company doing that. We've got Nampak as well, and a number of others that are also seeking to do that. Okay. Um, Reusing materials. This is where we've seen an awful lot of social enterprises starting to come onto the market, as well as entrepreneurs. We've got such a creative workforce out there, such an entrepreneurial spirit, and people with strong sustainability criteria who really want to reuse materials either as they are or with minimal changes to them, so that the product lasts longer, so that it gets a second, a third, or a fourth life. And really, if we can improve our infrastructure to help those people, to help those businesses to do that, then I think that's a really, really positive thing. The other thing that we do when we're actually seeking to avoid, reuse, and recycle resources, we will hopefully also find opportunities for them here in Northern Ireland. We, I suppose, have got very used in Northern Ireland to exporting our waste. We don't just export our products, we export our waste. And I believe that that's something that we need to look at in a bit more detail and actually consider how we can change that, so that we're actually getting the value of those materials ourselves as recyclates, as raw material for making new products and services. And I do believe that as we move into that scenario, that there will actually be new sustainable businesses arising and improving the economy of Northern Ireland moving forward. I'm not talking about becoming completely independent as a region economically. I do firmly believe that there's still a place for the global economy, for us to be working globally, but I do think that we need to move a little bit back and find the value here in Northern Ireland and use industrial symbiosis as one of the means of doing that. Basically, within the framework as well, just the higher the level you go, when you go up into levels one and two in particular, you actually reduce the cost involved and you reduce your environmental impact. So that, I think that just sums up really what I want to say on improving our regional infrastructure through a green economy here in Northern Ireland. That will also help us to stimulate our local economy. Um, Over the 13 years, we have a database with lots and lots of resources on it. As I said, we've got nearly 2,500 companies' resources on our database called Synergy. And those range from companies that say that they have particular resources that they would like to find a solution for, to other companies saying that they need particular resources to make their products, to deliver their services. So I think we could actually stimulate our economy if we were actually to look a little bit more closely, maybe do a bit more research and innovation in and around the have resources that aren't wanted by companies. They've got the benefit out of it for what they're doing, but it's still available. It's still of use. It can still be of value to somebody else. And then we can match them up with someone else who can actually take that material, or it can highlight entrepreneurial opportunities, business opportunities for you to pivot within your organization to set up an alternative um, business model that will actually take that waste, like Camden and Nampak have done, but like so many others as well are doing across Northern Ireland. And that's where the matches are made. And really, industrial symbiosis is matchmaking. It's matchmaking for business resources. It's an opportunity to give someone else essentially what you would previously have just been dumping and paying landfill charges for. It gives you the opportunity to actually get value for those again, and for other people to get value for them. And thirdly, it's around the whole green economy can actually help to achieve your carbon emission measures. I know that for most businesses at the minute that the focus on carbon emission measures has been on large corporates. I actually believe that needs to change and needs to filter down more into the smaller businesses. As part and parcel of what we do through industrial symbiosis, we actually capture the carbon savings that we make when we provide an introduction between two businesses, and actually move that material up the waste hierarchy. You actually reduce the carbon emissions, and you can see there up until the end of March of this year, it was 374,000 tonnes of CO2 emissions that we've reduced through the resource matching that we've done. I actually believe that figure could be significantly higher, and we've just captured it based on diversion from landfill, but there would be some additional CO2 emissions probably in there around reduction in transport, where we found a more proximal solution. That is a solution that's closer to the origin of where the raw material has been generated as well. And the way in which to do all of this is to review your business protocol and practices. I've already said about looking at your supply chain, so I'll not emphasize that again. But again, look at your raw materials. Can you change from using 100% virgin raw material to start to including some recycled and reprocessed materials into what you're making? Can you also look into finding solutions and your supply chain options closer to you? Are you selling your product closer to you, or is it always, thousands of miles away that you're selling your product to? Because that has an impact on your carbon emissions as a business. Again, product design really ties in with the raw materials. Engaging with innovative technologies really can make such a difference. A lot of the innovative technologies that are coming on board now are aiming to reduce carbon emissions and should be looked at for things like your transport, and even just for your business process, where the kinds of machinery that you're using. The innovative technologies that are coming through now are streets ahead of what was being produced 10 years ago. And all of this will help to tie in with net zero targets. Now, I would add a wee caveat here. I don't really like greenwashing. Um, Anyone who knows me well will know that, and that I'm a firm believer that, we should be reporting what we're actually doing, not what we potentially can be doing. So certainly all of our statistics of what we have actually achieved over the last 13 years is what we have calculated has actually happened for businesses. And I really think that the accurate reporting of what we're doing will actually help us. It'll improve our brand. It'll improve our reputations as businesses and as a region in which to work.